have exposure to an audience that may be interested in your products. So I just wanted to share that. Sometimes it's certainly from a PR perspective, the whole branding and education, but I never take anything for granted in terms of they ought to get this, they ought to be on board with this. We're good? We're good. Any questions before we kind of finish up our last 10 minutes? Yeah, 5 minutes. No questions? Yes.
So I think that, and this is something that I think you touched on a little bit, Sand Hill Road and some of the VCs that exist in the Bay Area are traditionally very male-oriented and very white by traditionally speaking. I'm curious if you think that nowadays we're approaching this paradigm shift where some of the VCs are interested in maybe expanding their portfolios in different ways and including more women CEOs, more people of color as CEOs, more LGBT people in tech, people that are generally underrepresented in technology, and sort of identifying these CEOs and the audiences that they may be appealing to in a way that they have not before, and want to actually funnel more money into some of those people to lead by example.
To keep it real, no. I really don't see it. I mean, on some individual levels, I know a couple of VCs or investors who are personally interested in that. I don't see a broad-based move toward it. You know, sometimes you see a VC defensively hire a couple people, maybe after they get sued, or maybe a little bit before. You know, and maybe it's not exactly because of that, but then I hear from people in the industry, boy, that kind of looked bad. I tried to tell her don't go there right now because it kind of looks like. But you don't continue to see those headlines in the 6 months after about other VCs bringing on a bunch of women. You know, so I don't necessarily see it. I would point out one organization that I think is exemplary in pushing that issue and others is the Indus entrepreneur, Thai. Unabashedly, you know, has become the center of gravity in the Indian tech community, brings in the best speakers that you'll see for any organization on the planet, and reaches out to influencers way beyond the South Asian community. So I think you find promoters of the cause like that, but not so much on Sand Hill Road.
Any other panelists? I have a comment, but I'd like to make sure.
Well, you know, recently HopStop was purchased, a $1 billion acquisition, and the founder of that company is a Nigerian guy. They're a company that started, I believe, in Africa, and I think VCs will do well to start to look at diversity because a lot of the companies that are going to be created in the future are not necessarily going to start in this country. They may come from India, they may come from Africa, they may come from overseas, and so I think to some extent VCs will have to shift the way that they look at this issue just to compete, you know?
They should, and I think somebody's going to do it, and then everybody else is going to follow. Yeah. But I don't see some groundswell of, boy, this is really good for us, we ought to do it, going across.
There's a guy, there's a fund called the, I'm trying to remember the name of this fund. There's a fund that just started actually that's focused on West Africa. I mean, you guys are probably familiar with Meltwater, which is an incubator from Ghana that's brought a couple companies to the Valley. But there's a fund that just started, I want to say True Ventures, maybe a True Venture Fund. That's the first real fund that I've seen that's focused just on African venture capital.
I wish diversity were like, you know, photo filters where everybody wanted in on it, right? But fortunately, unfortunately, it's an area where somebody's going to make a lot of money because they're going to go in when everybody else is looking the other way into West Africa, which is a huge economic opportunity, and own it for a while.
And a lot of times you just have to look at it like if you want to reach a certain audience, who better to speak to than someone from that audience? A lot of times, I mean, just take the black community, for example. By 2015, you're slated to spend, in America, African Americans, $1.1 trillion. There's some people that want a piece of that money, so who better to interface with than maybe a black CEO? But yeah, agreed, I don't see a big flock of this happening. There may be some sort of catalyst where it hits a tipping point and it goes there. I'm hoping, that'd be great. More diversity just means different trains of thought and more awesome shit out there, you know what I mean? So
I just wanted to mention from the philanthropic standpoint in doing a lot of fundraising, grant writing, and board training and governance, there is a move from foundations. And there are initiatives that are strictly focused on a particular culture. And they're putting hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars into programs, whether it's, and we constantly throw around underserved, at risk, things like that. But they're taking it to the next step. So I'm very excited from the philanthropic community and what they're doing. The Fortt Foundation, which are Rockefeller, all of those folks that have just tons, Robert Woods, that are putting hundreds of millions of dollars into health and obesity and children, but they're focusing on a particular culture and background. So there's some hope there. Thank you all, and we're good. Give ourselves a hand.
Thank you guys for that wonderful panel on